Quick show of hands, who is graduating in a matter of weeks? Well, terrific. Welcome to this new eco-economy. If you haven't read in the paper, this may be one of the hottest sectors for employment. So we're going to click through in 30 minutes and tell you my little story and see if there's anything that triggers some thoughts going forward in your career. Our goal, and this goes back a number of years, was to create this leading green resource. In America, we're way behind the European and the Asian markets, and also reinvent the way that homeowners think about this actual asset, their largest asset, as it relates to energy savings and overall efficiency. Let's go back a little bit here. Omega O the future. Pete Cook, Bill Slover, my buddies, we got the solar panels, and we heard Jimmy Carter was putting them on the White House and built this solar-powered boat. Kind of got the juices flowing to think maybe down the road there was something else in it for all of our careers. As we move forward, the big benchmarks were, undergrad, Virginia architecture, but then this master's program at Penn, looking at eco-humanism as a balance point. A real balance in this idea of lifestyle, but also adaptive reuse and energy. It wasn't enough to convince America to move into biodomes. Going forward, a little travel. Who's been over to Asia? Any travel experience from this group? Eastern Europe? Africa? Okay, it's a pretty incredible opportunity to get with faculty or with work to see firsthand how other cultures are living. We are not only behind the times, but we have forgotten in the last 50 years some fundamentals of just logical understandings of architecture on Earth. Like the sun is higher in the summer in the northern hemisphere than it is in the winter because of the tilt, the axis of the Earth, and that means farmers for several thousand years would have a southern overhang, and they would shade all summer that light from overheating their house, but then they would let it in the winter. They would have a deciduous tree on the southern side that would lose its leaves in the winter to let that heat in, and then they would shade it in the summer. The sun generates more power in a single day than all the fossil fuels on Earth. So, logic has left us to a large degree of modern culture because we rely on technology. Over in Africa and Eastern Europe, the same principles basically apply, but even in Central America, it's an eye-opener for me with thousands and thousands of miles logged and literally like 3-4 months living in Eastern Europe with villagers to understand the things that they had done in their communities and with their architecture. So this entrepreneurial story has a lot of roots. Let's go on to the next slide. Here are some quick benchmarks. Coming out of that travel experience for multiple years, putting out a patent on really a very efficient panel system, interlocking component and modular construction. Looking in the cities at buying, I ended up with about 200,000 square feet of abandoned buildings that I renovated with various partners, reusing the fabric of a city like Philadelphia is incredibly eco-friendly versus building new construction. 30 to 40% of our Philadelphia housing and commercial building stock is currently vacant. So as we look to build sprawl, we have to really challenge the whole principle itself and why we don't reuse structures. Does anyone remember the Super Soaker squirt gun? I bought their factory. It was left for ruin, 200,000 square feet, because Hasbro had bought the company for $100 million, but did not want to buy, across from Chinatown, this massive 5-building complex. So it would be left for 4 or 5 years empty, and took that as an opportunity, almost like the Louisiana Purchase, to chalk the floors within some of these startup internet businesses back in the late 90s, and let them, within certain code requirements, use that space, find the sustainability components with the really direct access to public transportation. And it was the beginning of then implementing some of these ideas from the thesis. Lo and behold, coming into some 8 years later, wanted to test the suburban model. Happened to have a young son and a newlywed relationship with my wife, and we thought we'd uproot and head out to the western suburbs and see if we could take those same principles of adaptive reuse and sustainability and apply them to, in this case, the main line, a little 2-bedroom house. Part of that we're going to cover in terms of how we transformed it. All through this process, there was a lot of learning about this return on investment information. Not just the green for the sake of being green, but saving money first on fuel, and the byproduct of that saving is reducing the carbon footprint and ultimately saving the polar bears and their icy habitat. So instead of starting the conversation with saving the polar bears, we end the conversation with that piece as a positive byproduct. When it comes to the demand, for energy savings, the step was then to take the website and realize just in this last year, we launched the Eco Academy in January, there were homeowners, business owners across the country that wanted to share in that savings. There was confusion in the marketplace as to whether to buy the light bulb or the Prius, whether to do something with bamboo floors or a green roof. And we set the ROI table in motion to physically go into homes and properties and created an Eco Academy to literally certify trainees as consultants to be able to help people on their own property. It wasn't just enough to have the web. This website that we built happens to be the recipient of some terrific accolades, whether it's these Green Maven guys or whether it was the Clear Channel Radio, they called it the best user-friendly site for homeowners. That's always great, but until there's action, and after some 36,000 homeowners took action and started to see the difference in their utility bills, it didn't feel like it was truly something that was making an impact, because the goal is not to build a popular website, but to impact 100 million homes in the country. As we click through the next one, this is the lead up to the Eco Academy. Well, imagine the joy of seeing this thing work. You create some jobs. Certainly we're in a recession. You are going to feel the full brunt of that when you look in the job market for new opportunities post-graduation. But if that new job as a home efficiency consultant can generate home energy savings, the homeowners benefit, and it looks like they also benefit with higher home values. Let's throw out some numbers. If I were to save $1 on the annual energy bill of a property, the National Journal of Appraisers has come up with some statistics about what they think that home's value would be as an increase. So for every dollar saved, does anyone want to venture a guess in terms of the asset appreciation, dollar to dollar? I'll pick on you right up front. What do you think? How about $5? Think it's 5 to 1? So if I save $1,000 on my annual utility bills, is the house worth $5,000 more? How about 10? The number's coming in at 20. So what we're seeing is the resistance used to be, well, I may move in 3 years. I want to do all these eco things. I want to save some money, but I'm not planning on staying. Or I don't think that the market is going to basically recoup my investment. And now we're seeing this massive number. And it's because, if you think of the logic, if they're two, $250,000 houses, and one of them is going to cost $3,000 a year to operate, and the other might be at $2,000, well, I'm willing to spend an extra $20,000 because the reality is it's real dollars in my pocket. I'm also willing to spend that extra money because that house may have the smartest systems with the high efficiency heat pumps and water tanks and everything else. And it would cost me well over the 20 to optimize that property. When it comes to some of these accolades, it's great that we're picked by these channels and everything as a top provider. It's nice to be on the cover of Inventors Digest magazine. Those help build the traction. It's also nice to have a fundraiser for the individual that's now the president in your own backyard, and then get elected to these boards and things. But again, that doesn't impact 100 million houses. Let's talk about this Green Star in the State of the Union. Roll forward. We're talking about $6.2 billion in weatherization. This is unprecedented money that's coming into the marketplace. So just to give you an idea, they're spending $6,500 per household for the lower and lower middle income houses. That's a big number. We can do actually a lot more with sometimes those dollars with some tactics that we recommend through the home efficiency. As we go through this, we're talking about a big statistic, 40% of national energy consumption from homes and offices. I mean, we could wean ourselves off of this foreign oil literally this weekend if we were smarter about the tactics of how we live in our houses and how we operate those organisms, not just as objects, but as these living, breathing fuel sources. Now, when it comes to greenhouse gases, obviously the nice byproduct of this is reduction of the hazards that are basically creating the hotter planet. As we roll through, we can talk a little bit about this home transformation, and I pulled some highlight photos to show you what this all means in practice.